The morning light glints off the check-in counter, turning the airport into a theater of quiet judgment. Aaliyah stands in line, passport clutched, a faint smile fixed like armor. The woman behind the desk barely glances up. Her neck slices the air, flat and rehearsed. Aaliyah steps forward. "Good morning," she says softly. The attendant's eyes flick to her ticket, then back to her face. "This is for first class," she says, like correcting a child. "It is," Aaliyah replies. Calm, steady. A small pause. Too long. The woman forces a laugh. "Oh, of course, you're traveling alone?" Aaliyah nods. "Yes," her fingers tap the counter. "Security will just need to recheck your credentials." Policy. People behind her shuffle, sighing. A man in a suit mutters, "Always something." Aaliyah doesn't move. Is there an issue? The attendant smiles, that brittle, polished smile. "Not at all. We just need to confirm. You understand." Narration drifts in like a slow heartbeat. They never say it out loud. They just rearrange the air until you start to doubt you belong in it. The guard approaches, heavy steps echoing. "Ma'am, we need you to step aside." Aaliyah's voice barely rises. "Because my ticket says first class?" He hesitates, not answering. Eyes around them lower, phones tilt, pretending to scroll. The hum of the airport swallows her silence, but not her gaze. She looks at the attendant, not angry, not afraid, just steady. In that stillness, she learns that equality isn't denied in shouts. It's erased in tone, in glances, in how long someone waits before believing you. She exhales once, quietly, and steps aside. The camera lingers. The line moves on. The guard steps back as Ms. Hale appears, her heels clicking like punctuation marks of authority. She doesn't look at Aaliyah right away. She looks at the ticket, then at the logo on Aaliyah's bag, as if both need verification. "Miss," she begins, her tone coated in courtesy, "we just want to be sure this ticket is accurate." Aaliyah meets her eyes. "It's accurate." Ms. Hale offers a thin smile. "Of course. It's just, we've had cases before. You understand. People trying to board with what?" Aaliyah interrupts softly. Ms. Hale hesitates. "With tickets that didn't match their status." The silence between them tightens. Around them, people pretend not to listen. But every ear leans closer. Aaliyah's hand doesn't shake when she slides her ID forward. "Here. Same name, same face. Same right to be here." Ms. Hale glances at the ID longer than necessary, like she's waiting for it to confess something it never will. "I'll need to confirm with my supervisor," she murmurs. Though her expression already says, "I don't believe you," narration folds quietly in, "They never touch your skin, but they find 100 ways to test if you belong inside it." Aaliyah watches the woman fumble with her headset, voice trembling slightly now, not from fear, but from exposure. The cameras around them, the murmurs, the shifting eyes, they begin to turn, not at Aaliyah, but at her. Aaliyah breathes in, her calm cutting through the performance. "Take your time," she says, voice steady. "Truth doesn't rush," Ms. Hale swallows. The words land heavy, not loud, but final. In that instant, power shifts, not through force, but through composure that refuses to break. The hum of the terminal fades into a low, uneasy drone. Aaliyah can hear the flicker of fluorescent lights above her, the slow drag of her own breath. 2 security guards stand a few feet away, not threatening, not gentle, just watching. Ms. Hale folds her arms, her voice even. "We just need to verify a few things. Standard protocol," Aaliyah nods once. "You've already checked my ID, my ticket." "My seat. Yes, well, procedures change when situations seem..." Ms. Hale pauses, searching for a word that won't sound ugly out loud. "Different?" Aaliyah finishes for her. The guard looks down. Even he feels the sting. Narration eases in softly. Racism never announces itself. It just waits for silence to make room. Aaliyah doesn't move. Her fingers clutch the suitcase handle like it's the last solid thing in a room melting into fog. A man nearby lowers his phone, pretending to scroll, but his camera lens is open. He's recording, Quietly, carefully, Ms. Hale senses it too. Her tone sharpens. "There's no need to make a scene." Aaliyah's voice is calm. "I'm not making one." "You are! That line hangs in the air." Even the speakers announcing flight departures seem to hesitate before resuming. The guards shift uneasily. One whispers something, too soft to catch, but it sounds like regret. Narration returns, just a breath. Every stare carries weight. Some crush, some awaken. Aaliyah finally releases the handle. Her posture straightens, not in defiance, in quiet ownership of space she was never meant to ask for. The recording light blinks once, then steadies. The moment is captured, not by rage but by restraint, and suddenly, the silence feels heavier than any accusation. The air trembles before the sound arrives, a deep, rolling thunder that makes everyone pause. The terminal windows vibrate lightly. Outside, a sleek black jet glides onto the runway, sunlight bouncing off its body like a warning. Ms. Hale turns toward the glass, blinking. "Whose jet is that?" she murmurs. No one answers. The guards exchange glances. One lowers his radio as if even static shouldn't interrupt. Narration settles in quietly. Sometimes justice doesn't shout. It lands, Aaliyah doesn't move. Her gaze follows the plane, calm and knowing. The crowd begins to whisper. Not about her ticket anymore, but about the sudden shift in air. Ms. Hale clears her throat, forcing control back into her voice. "We're not finished here." Aaliyah finally looks at her. "You are." That small line hits harder than any scream. It isn't defiance, it's fact. Footsteps echo. A man in a tailored suit steps through the automatic doors, flanked by two airport officials who suddenly look nervous. The guards straighten. Ms. Hale's posture falters for the first time. "Mr. Carter," one of them breathes. He walks past them all, eyes finding only his daughter. "You okay?" Aaliyah nods once. "I'm fine." The stillness that follows feels heavier than sound. Ms. Hale opens her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to explain, but no words arrive. Narration returns, steady and sharp. Power doesn't disappear. It just remembers where it belongs. The jet's engines wind down outside, their echo lingering like judgment. Around them, passengers lower their phones, ashamed to have filmed what they refused to stop. And for the first time all day, Aaliyah doesn't feel watched. She feels seen. The echo of the jet's engines fades, replaced by a silence too heavy to breathe through. Elijah's eyes drift, not to his daughter, not to Ms. Hale, but to the gate behind her. For a second, he isn't standing in the present. He's 25 again, holding a paper ticket in a trembling hand while two guards block his way. Narration slips in, soft and slow. History doesn't vanish. It waits, patient, cruel, for a moment to repeat itself. Elijah's voice in the memory is calm but cracked. "I paid for that seat," the officer smirks. "Then pay for your attitude." Back then, he turned away. He learned that silence kept you safe, even when it burned. Now he watches Aaliyah standing where he once did, and something inside him bends. Not in anger, but recognition. Ms. Hale breaks the silence. "Mr. Carter, I didn't realize..." Elijah cuts in, gentle but sharp. "You didn't need to realize. You just needed to see." Her throat tightens. The same polished authority that once protected her now feels like a mirror cracking. He steps closer, voice steady. "You thought this was about a ticket. It's not. It's about who you decided wasn't worth believing." A hush settles across the terminal. Even the guards shift, uncertain now of their stance. Narration returns. Every generation prays the next won't have to bleed the same way. But here they were, father and daughter, in the same war under different uniforms. Aaliyah glances at him, silent understanding passing between them. Elijah exhales, heavy, tired. The past hadn't died. It had just been waiting for witnesses. Mark stood behind the counter, pretending to type, though his fingers hadn't touched a key in minutes. The name Carter still rang in his ears, not as a passenger's name, but as something heavier, historical. He watched Elijah's calm stare, the quiet control that felt louder than any argument he'd ever heard. Ms. Hale tried to hold her posture. "Let's not make this dramatic, Mr. Carter." Elijah tilted his head. "You already did." Her lips parted, but no words followed. Just the faint hum of people pretending not to watch. Mark swallowed hard. "Ma'am, maybe we should just—" She cut him off with a glance sharp enough to freeze him. But something inside Mark shifted anyway. For years, he'd learned to smile the same company smile, polished, obedient, safe. Now it felt like a mask melting in public. Narration slipped quietly through his thoughts. It wasn't supposed to look like this. Justice wasn't supposed to be this quiet, or this calm. He looked around. A couple in first class whispered. A cleaner paused mid-sweep. Even the guard lowered his eyes. The silence had changed sides. Elijah's voice broke it, slow and even. "You can keep the apology. Just make sure my daughter doesn't inherit the same silence I did." Mark felt his chest tighten. Guilt, maybe. Or shame. He didn't know which one hurt worse. Ms. Hale finally spoke, her voice smaller now. "We'll fix this," Elijah nodded, eyes steady. "You can't fix what you refuse to see." For the first time, Ms. Hale didn't reply. The system's practiced smile, her armor, cracked. And Mark, standing behind her, realized the silence wasn't protection anymore. It was witness engines still hummed outside as the glass doors slid open. The terminal lights flickered slightly, as if even the building wasn't sure how to react. Elijah walked in, quiet and steady, the weight of composure draped over him like armor. People stepped aside without being told. Power didn't shout. It simply arrived. Ms. Hale's voice cracked before she spoke. "Mr. Carter, I didn't expect—" He stopped a few feet from her. "No one ever does, Ms. Hale." The air thickened. Mark stood behind the counter again, trying to look busy. He wasn't. Everyone was watching. Elijah's gaze scanned the space. The same check-in desk, the same eyes that had once looked down on him. "I remember this place," he said softly. Different faces. Same tone. Ms. Hale tried to smile, but it faltered. "It was a misunderstanding." He tilted his head. "You call it that when it's not your child." She looked down, hands trembling slightly. Silence grew. Uncomfortable, long, almost merciful. Narration filled the space her words couldn't reach. He wasn't here to prove worth. He already owned the sky. He was here to remind them that silence had witnesses. Elijah leaned forward, his voice even. "You run an airport. You should know, turbulence doesn't last, but it always changes the way you fly." Ms. Hale swallowed. "I understand." "No," he replied, stepping back. "You heard me. Understanding takes time. A pause, a shift, a quiet loss of power." As he turned toward the exit, the automatic doors opened again. Not for convenience, but out of respect. Every gaze followed him, and for the first time, guilt filled the air thicker than jet fuel. A faint click broke the silence, then another, and another. Phones lifted, screens glowing. The crowd that once stood frozen now leaned forward, drawn by quiet justice unfolding in real time. Ms. Hale's posture stiffened, realizing too late that her power no longer belonged to her. "Elijah, please," she whispered, voice cracking. "Let's not make this worse." He met her eyes, calm, unshaken. "Worse? You made it worse the moment you chose blindness over decency." She opened her mouth to respond, but his tone cut through her hesitation. "You didn't see my daughter, Ms. Hale. You saw your assumption." Gasps moved through the room like wind through dry leaves. Mark flinched, eyes darting toward the cameras now filming everything. For the first time, he didn't look away. Narration slipped in like a breath. In that instant, truth stopped needing permission. It stood on its own, raw, undeniable, and recorded forever. Ms. Hale's face flushed red. "You think this spectacle helps anyone?" Elijah's voice softened, not out of pity, but finality. "No, it reminds everyone." Silence followed. Only the sound of distant jet engines filled the air. One woman in uniform lowered her gaze, guilt heavy in her chest. Another stepped back, hiding her badge. Mark finally spoke, voice trembling. "Sir, I'm sorry." Elijah looked at him, then at the crowd. "Then start by not staying silent next time." No anger. No victory speech. Just calm truth, the kind that burns quietly. Narration closed like a curtain. By the time he walked away, the video had already left the room. Justice didn't shout. It streamed live. And somewhere between the clicks and the silence, the world began to watch. The room was filled with clicks and murmurs, yet it felt like no one breathed. Elijah stood behind the podium, not with anger, but with the kind of stillness that made every camera lean in closer. The world expected fury. Instead, it found restraint. He adjusted the mic. "They asked me why I didn't yell," he said, voice steady. "Because yelling is what they expect from people like me." A reporter cleared her throat. "Mr. Carter, do you plan to press charges?" He looked at her, not answering right away. The pause stretched long enough to make the air heavy. "No," he said finally. "I plan to press understanding." A faint stir moved across the room. Ms. Hale sat at the back, hands clasped tight, her face drained of authority. The silence that followed wasn't mercy. It was consequence. Narration cut through the weight like a whisper. Sometimes silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's the sound of power choosing not to scream. Another reporter asked, "What message do you want this to send?" Elijah's eyes softened. That respect shouldn't depend on wealth or color. My daughter shouldn't have to own an airline to be treated like she belongs on one. A hush followed. Cameras flashed, not in chaos, but in reverence. Ms. Hale looked down. The same silence she used to control others now wrapped around her like a confession. Elijah stepped back from the mic, nodding once. No slogans, no applause. Narration closed quietly. The world waited for him to explode. Instead, he held a mirror, and for the first time, they saw themselves clearly, painfully, completely. And in that silence, justice spoke the loudest. The hallway is silent except for the shuffle of papers and the faint buzz of lights. Ms. Hale stands by the counter, face pale, eyes darting at the security guards now pretending to fix their posture. Her badge trembles in her hand. Across from her, Aaliyah stands still, suitcase by her side, chin lifted. "Miss Hale," a voice from corporate murmurs. "You're relieved of duty pending review." She tries to speak. The words trip over her breath. I was following protocol." Elijah's calm voice cuts through. "Protocol doesn't point at color, does it?" The words hang heavy. A few staff look down. One clears his throat. Ms. Hale's lips part, but no sound follows. "I didn't mean—" She starts, eyes wet. "You didn't have to," Elijah replies softly. A beat of silence. The air feels thick, like guilt has taken a physical shape. Aaliyah finally speaks, voice steady. "All I wanted was to board my flight. No anger. No grand speech. Just truth. Clean, sharp, unadorned." Ms. Hale nods weakly, tears sliding down her cheek. Her voice shrinks. I was protecting company standards." Elijah looks at her. Not with rage, but something colder. "You were protecting comfort. Yours, not ours." Her shoulders collapse. Cameras still flash outside, though the world has already chosen its side. The same passengers who once watched silently now avert their eyes again. Not from Aaliyah, but from themselves. Aaliyah turns to leave. The wheels of her suitcase hum against the floor, the sound of composure reclaiming space. Ms. Hale's whisper follows her. "I didn't know it would end like this." Elijah stops, barely glances back. "It didn't end," he says quietly. "It finally began." The office feels smaller now. The hum of printers, the chatter, the polished heels, all gone. Ms. Hale stands by the window, coffee untouched, eyes on the runway outside. Planes lift into the clouds, one after another, like reminders of the life that moved on without her. Her phone buzzes once. A news alert. Airline implements anti-discrimination training following viral incident. Her name isn't mentioned. Not even once. She exhales, slow, uneven. The silence that once made her powerful now feels like punishment. A faint knock. One of her former coworkers peeks in, hesitant. "They said, you can collect your things today." Ms. Hale nods. "Right, of course." He lingers, unsure. It was Rough what happened, but maybe it's good people saw. She forces a small smile. Good for who? He looks away. Maybe for everyone who never said anything. He leaves. The door shuts softly, a sound too final. Narration. Sometimes the world doesn't end with noise. It ends with no one calling your name anymore. Ms. Hale opens a drawer, old flight reports, schedules, a photo of her first promotion. Her handwriting looks neater then, her eyes younger. She folds the photo quietly and slips it into her purse. Her voice barely escapes a whisper. I thought I was doing my job, but even she doesn't believe it now. Outside, a crew member passes, whispering to another. They lower their voices when they see her. The shame is mutual, heavy, quiet, unspoken. She walks out of the office. No one stops her. No one says goodbye. As the elevator doors close, her reflection fades into the steel. Narration. The applause had ended weeks ago. But the silence, that stayed. The hangar smells of fuel and morning air. Sunlight slips through the open doors, painting the floor in long golden stripes. Aliyah sits on a crate, sketching in silence, lines forming wings, smooth and strong. Not paper birds, ownership, control. Elijah steps closer, his boots echoing softly. You still draw before every flight, he says, almost smiling. Aliyah nods without looking up. It reminds me why I fly. Not to prove I belong, but because I already do. He leans against a pillar, watching. They talk less now, he says, online. The noise faded. Good, she answers. Maybe it's time for action, not words. A pause. Only the hum of an engine being tested somewhere nearby. Elijah glances toward the runway. Funny thing about justice, he says. It's never loud. It's just steady. She looks up finally, eyes clear. Like takeoff. You don't feel the lift until you're already off the ground. Narration. For months, the world debated her worth. Now she no longer listens. Her silence is not surrender. It's peace. Aliyah flips her sketchbook closed and stands. They used to tell me flying wasn't made for people like me, she says quietly. Now they're learning to take lessons from me. Elijah chuckles under his breath. Maybe that's what justice looks like, the student becoming the pilot. She smirks. No, justice looks like this hangar, full, paid for, and mine. Outside, a plane rises, slicing through the light. She watches it climb until it disappears into the sky. Narration. Justice didn't roar this time. It arrived like dawn, quiet, certain, and too bright to ignore. Elijah murmurs almost to himself, guess justice learned to fly.